Subscribe, like, comment and share to support the channel. Thank you for the support. Marnak soon leaves the spider cave and walked across the snowy grounds once more, but something catches his attention as he gazes upon it with a grim expression on his face. "Damn," he said as he looked to the city of Kelton, which had been set on fire as the screams of horror from its citizens echoed into the night sky. Marnak could only comment that it looks like they got to them first. The scene changes to Lordstrand, who had been killed, as his pale and bloodied face lay restless on the ground. A voice was talking happily about Lordstrand, calling him a pig that was better at hopping away than she thought. The voice continues to wonder if he was a kind of rabbit-pig thing. A group of 3 surrounded Lordstrand's dead body as flames were growing all around. The black-haired female continued to talk about how the bastards who tried to protect the pig known as Lordstrand had just wasted their precious time just because he was considered a lord. The blonde man soon asks them about the incarnation. The blonde female replies that it was unstable, and as he knows, it was not easy to extract divinity from living beings. She continues to add on that on top of that, despite it not being quite ready, they even managed to lose a couple of rats because of someone here. Feeling that she was the one being blamed, the black-haired lady shouted out in anger over that remark. The blonde lady continues to speak that not only do they need to carry out their plans now, but their chances of success was also much lower now. Pointing a middle finger in anger, the black-haired lady wonders if they thought she did it on purpose, but she refutes the claim by saying that she did her best, but it was because of those 2 muscle monk freaks and that teaching sect bastard that kept bothering her. She shouts out that if Layla, the spider queen that Marnak had slain previously, had just sent them a couple of spiders, then that arrow-shooting bastard who managed to escape in the end, they would have been able to catch him. "Looks like our boy Carmen is still alive." The blonde lady then mentions that she just realized that Layla wasn't here with them yet, but the black-haired lady refutes that this wasn't the first time that Layla was late due to wasting her time with her spiders, but she curses even more over the fact that if Layla had actually arrived, she would have just played around with the bodies. The blonde man soon intervenes into the conversation, telling the ladies that it was enough and that there was no point in fighting amongst themselves. He noted that since Carmen had managed to escape from them, they should expect that troops would soon be deployed to hunt them down. He tells the ladies to not forget about how many years they had invested into this plan. The black-haired lady continues to voice out her opinions, telling the blonde man that she herself had invested 3 years of her own time and wondered why he was acting like the leader since she couldn't take his criticism. She continues to shout at the other 2 members, asking them if they thought she had let Carmen go because she wanted to and that she couldn't stand watching them scream at her for losing that 1 rat. She continues to belittle the blonde lady, who remains silent, telling the blonde man that something seems off about her today and wondered if it was because they didn't screw each other last night. But all the blonde lady did was gripped her skirt tightly as the black-haired lady reveals that she knew that they had gotten close recently. The blonde lady then decides to go take a look at things that were outside. The black-haired lady continues to scream at her, asking her if she thought that people might think that the plan wouldn't work without her around. The blonde man tells Parna the black-haired lady to stop as he was going to make sure that Layla takes responsibility for losing the rats. Hearing those words brought a smile to Parna's face. She agrees with his suggestion and tells him that she would shut up for as long as he wants, but the blonde lady's head suddenly flew in the air, causing her to stop her sentence halfway. The sight of the blonde lady's head flying in the air was reflected in her eye as she witnessed it. Marnak had arrived on the scene, cutting off the head of the blonde lady first. His sword started to rev itself, meaning that it was slaughtering time. The blonde man could only stare as the shadow of Marnak's sword casts itself over him. With a mighty downward swing of his sword, Marnak cuts the blonde man straight down the middle. Parna looked in horror as she watched her team members get slaughtered right in front of her. "What the F?" she shouted as Marnak looks at her with a skull mask on his face. He then slowly makes his way towards her, talking out loud whether to kill the 3rd one without asking them questions. He tells Mother that she had a point that was pretty unfair and that he knew it, but he reminds her that these people were able to manipulate divinity, which meant that they were more than able to cause Marnak some damage. He questions Mother about how he was sure that she would rather avoid having him get hurt than winning a pointless bet. Parna continued to stand still with a horrified expression on her face, wondering why the lunatic in front of her was talking to himself. As the mask slowly eroded from his face, Marnak soon takes notices of Parna, who continued to be confused about what was going on right now. With a smile on his face, he calls out to Parna, the worshipper of the evil spirit. "What's your purpose of surrounding Kelton?" asked Marnak once again with a smile on his face. The same way he asked Layla from before. Marnak soon looks at something and commented that it was more impressive than he thought. Parna agrees with his statement, telling him that it was the reason why they had spent 3 years on it. A giant red blob of something was erected in the middle of Kelton. Parna talked about how it wouldn't make sense to waste that much time unless it's for something like this. Marnak looks at her and thought about how she answered him as soon as he asked the question, as if she was waiting for him and that she had told him everything she knew. Their story was simple. They wanted to sacrifice all the people within the city, and create this ball of divinity called the Incarnation. In order to fulfill the plan, they had hid within the city for the last 3 years, even though it needed 5 more days of preparations. But they had no choice but to rush their plans, leading to the recent series of events thanks to them losing Carmen. Marnak soon pulls out his chainsaw sword once again. Parna looks at him in shock and questioned Marnak about what he was doing. "What do you think?" replied Marnak as he tells her that he was going to kill that monster that consumed the flesh and blood of others before it wakes up. But Parna begs him to not do that. "Don't!" shouted Parna as Marnak stabbed his sword into the Incarnation. She continued to scream out loud as Marnak continues to slice and dice the monster. She soon gives out a warning that if that being was in danger, but Marnak couldn't hear her over the sound of his sword slicing flesh. She continues to warn him that it would wake up in an unstable state. A mouth soon appears from the blob of flesh. It began to speak, crying out that it hurts. "It hurts," shouted the monster as an eyeball soon pops out from somewhere. Soon enough a white monster emerges from the blob of flesh, letting out a horrifying scream that pierced the air. Mother soon calls out to Marnak, who tells her that he was aware that there was a holy relic inside the monster. He grips hard onto a white meat that had pierced his shoulder, removing it from his body with a smile on his face. Marnak tells Mother that they will soon awake a new authority, and that he was going to sacrifice that blob of meat to her. Parna shouts at Marnak about what he was doing while cursing at him. Marnak's reply was simple. He simply sliced off her head as she asked him if he thought that was going to work. As her head flew through the air, Marnak tells her that this was her punishment. A notification window appears telling Marnak that he had gained 1000 divinity, with the new divinity from Parna. Marnak's total was now 8592. Alongside the worshippers of the evil spirits, Marnak had managed to extract divinity from the Lord as well. All he needed to attain a new authority was about 10,000 divinity. Marnak knew that even if he tried to cut it down with Slayer, his chainsaw sword, the monster would just regenerate itself. But on the other hand, if he continues to get attacked by it, he would eventually lose this fight, and since it was a blob of meat, there isn't a clear weakness like the Spider Queen. Seeing the monster emerge from the blob left Marnak with only one choice now. With a heavy grip on his Slayer and a powerful force behind his feet, Marnak decides to use the most powerful skill known to mankind, which was to run away. Both Mother and the monster were shocked to see the choice that Marnak had made. With its sights still focused on Marnak, the monster lets out another shout. "It hurts," it yelled out loud. As Marnak started to run away, he also absorbed divinity that he came across. Looking back at the monster, Marnak knew that he needed a little more divinity for the next authority anyways. As he crosses paths with the dead citizens on the ground, Marnak soon gained 1 divinity for each dead citizen he came across. He continues to run away and around the city, hoping to run away until he had enough. "It hurts! It hurts! It hurts!" shouted the monster as it chases after Marnak. He knew that this was a game of whether the monster catches him first, or if he manages to gain a new authority first. Marnak was excited to see who would win. The white monster soon lets out another scream into the air, but this one was different as it causes Marnak to stop in his tracks. The roar from the white monster was strong enough to break the ground around it. Marnak covers his ears while thinking about how its voice was divine and concluded that the white monster was a walking disaster. White tentacles soon stretched out from its body and headed towards where Marnak stood. Mother shouts at him to warn him about it as he slowly turns around to see it. Bang, bang, bang was how it went as the white tentacles caused massive mayhem all around. Marnak manages to dodge most of its attacks as he yells out to Mother to help him. A familiar green portal appears from above the white monster as it looked at it with its massive single eye. Reflected in its iris is our very own big white boy, the Corruption Giant, with his signature hammer fist attack. The Corruption Giant slams its fist hard into the white monster. A large green explosion could be seen as it appears in the middle of the city. "I knew it," thought Marnak as he watches from afar. More of the white tentacles soon started to appear around the Corruption Giant. It soon pierces itself into its body. The Corruption Giant shouts out in pain and confusion as Marnak continues to watch from afar. Knowing that one Corruption Giant wouldn't be enough, He tells the corruption giant to not push itself too hard and that he would be back soon. Looking around the ruins of the city, Marnak knew that he needed more bodies. The bodies of well-trained elite soldiers, or at least knights. Burnt skulls and bodies remained in the fires. Mother shouts murder. Marnak replied back to her that he knew that too much time had passed for her to absorb these corpses. But had he known, Marnak would have harvested their divinity first when he was looking for the evil spirit worshippers. As he continued to run through the flames, Marnak knew that the amount of divinity he had accumulated up until now is 9,237. But as he continued to run he needed even more. Thump, thump, thump could be heard above as Marnak looks up to see what it was. The building he was in soon explodes as Mother shouts out murder. Marnak had managed to protect himself from the sudden attack, with his slayer revving up to slice and dice. More white tentacles soon emerges out from the ruins which Marnak sees in time. He manages to block the sudden attack from the white tentacle. The white monster soon appears by itself and shouts out pain. Marnak looks up to the sudden appearance of the white monster in the air. It attacks Marnak with enough force to cause another explosion, but our boy manages to leap up from its attack. Pain, said the monster. Marnak replies back with Slayer raised up high. Marnak noted that it looks like the white monster had grown from its fight against the corruption giant. Damn, he looks like a Gigachad now. There was an eerie silence that filled the air as neither Marnak or the monster made a move, but the monster soon raises its hand up. With a smile on its face it shouts out pain and lets out more tentacles that move fast towards Marnak. Seeing the sudden attack catches his attention. With a swing of his slayer, Marnak manages to cut down the tentacles that wanted to touch him. Even the monster was surprised by Marnak's prowess as he leaps up towards it. But as he was about to strike the monster, Marnak notices something. The monster held a smile on its face as it shows its fist readied. Even more tentacles appear and latches onto Marnak. With a sudden twist of its body, the monster had swung Marnak headfirst into a nearby building. Mother shouts out murder as another explosion is seen from where Marnak was thrown to. He was then seen laying on the ground with his arms and legs spread across as Mother shouts murder. Marnak held a smile as he tells her that he was okay and that he was really lucky. Mother was curious by what he meant by that, so Marnak asks her if she remembers what the evil spirit worshipper had said. A flashback is seen from when Parna was shouting out about the fact that there were some bastards who tried to protect Lordstrand, as Marnak uses Slayer to help him stand up. He talked about how where he was right now was where the knights had died to protect Lordstrand. The monster soon stands out and roars. Marnak sees it and tells Mother to take them all. Just a green aura surrounds his body. Green flames soon started to appear and spread all around from where Marnak stood. The divinity that he had started to increase due to the dead knights that surrounded Marnak. After some time, Marnak had finally reached over 10,000 divinity. Even the monster was alarmed to see what was going on. Marnak then calls out to Mother, telling her that as her son, he shall offer her 10,000 divinity. So, he tells her to please bestow upon him a new authority. The monster soon looks down at something that lighted from below. Darkness soon spreads from where Marnak stood, and soon enough, even the monster found itself trapped in a dark space. Marnak soon appears as well. Pain, shouted the monster while he wore a smile on his face. Slayer started to rev itself up as well. He tells the monster that it will soon be in much more pain and suffering than he was now. The monster seems to understand what Marnak said as it gave out a shocked reaction. Marnak points Slayer towards it, telling it to listen closely, but the monster decided to attack Marnak regardless of his warning. His eyes began to glow bright green. Knowing that this new authority, called the Whole of Corruption, it decomposes all living beings that step aside. But of course Marnak was no exception from its powers. Since he was able to use the text of corruption, Marnak was able to choose which body parts would decompose first based on what he didn't need for battle. The monster soon realizes that its arm had been sliced off after exchanging blows with Marnak. He looks at the monster, telling it that they were going to see if its regeneration or if this hole's decomposition was faster. They soon continued to battle it out against one another in the hole of decomposition. Some time had passed as the monster spoke out, "Pain, stop." Marnak had won the battle against it as it was revealed that the monster's arms and lower body had been cut off by Marnak. He then tells Mother that he had did it. With a final swing of Slayer, he cuts off the head of the monster. Both Mother and Marnak's hands soon held onto an orb that gave out a purple aura. Marnak intuited that this was the body's holy relic. He then offers the holy relic to Mother as the orb began to shine brightly. He tells Mother to please lift the seal. Mother shouts murder as her green light appears. Soon enough the light from Mother started to shine brightly around all them. Daytime had arrived, but Marnak was confused about something as he calls out to Mother while still holding onto the orb in his hand. But Mother shouts out murder, causing him to turn around to see where it was coming from. A little girl was standing from in the distance from Marnak as mother continues to shout murder. Marnak started to blush heavily as he thought about what had happened. Seeing the little girl in bandages made him wonder if this was mother. Thanks for watching the latest part from the Voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.